run this workshop, relevant workshop, and we were virtual for a week, May 4th through the 8th. And we were using all sorts of platforms, and our speakers were doing their live office hours in our private Facebook group. So we were running the Facebook Live. I mean, I wasn't doing it, but it was, it's amazing what technology has allowed us to do and what it has brought in terms of new opportunities for people during this time.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So we are.
Yeah, so we're live on Facebook. And so Steph and Brie here for our Live with the Locals. And we are with a first timer Facebook Live special guest, Meg Simone. So thanks, Meg, for being here.
Oh my goodness. Thank you both so much for having me. This is such a treat. I just love seeing both of your smiling faces, not just because you are both former clients, but I love and respect what you both have done in your careers. And it's just so fun to see how you are bringing the community together, both down in your neck of the woods and allowing me to jump in as a voice. I'm just up the road in the White Mountains and do a lot of work in your neck of the woods too, since we are sort of interconnected. So this is really a treat. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to see you.
Yes. And for those of people who don't know, Meg Simone, she's a wedding videographer. Where she did Brie and my wedding, not together, obviously, but
we didn't
get married, but she did our weddings respectively over the years. And it's funny, I told my husband that we were doing a live with you today, and he knows how much I loved you before our wedding. So everybody knows oh, Meg Simone's gonna come on. You must be so excited to chat with her again.
Oh, that's too funny.
Time goes by too fast because gosh, mine's 5 years now and yours.
Yeah. Oh, six. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. So
did the two of you know of each other back in the day? Had you always been friends? Because you weren't at each other's weddings, I don't think.
Right.
No,
we worked at the same place, so we knew who each other were.
Oh.
But that's the extent of it.
No, but I was one of those that, because Brie got married before me, that had creeped her, Facebook and said, oh, she has Meg Simone too. And I had already, it was, one of those situations. So we have good taste.
Yes.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
And for those of, we said a little bit, but we'd love for you to share about your business. You have 3, businesses now in the film industry. So give us a little background before we go into COVID about those.
Absolutely. So I've been doing this for my first wedding. I did film in 2000, but I was right out of, maybe I was still in college. I've been doing this for a long time, but as I was reminiscing on when did things in my business really pick up for my main company with Meg Simone Wedding Films, it was in 2004. I filmed my first wedding at Church Landing shortly after they opened. And I have so many fond memories of filming down in the Lakes region. And that's sort of where I fell in love with the lake. It was around that time that my sister Mia had moved to that area too. So I love that neck of the woods. And with that business, it grew and grew and started to cover all of New England. And I wanted a way to work closer to home. So I ended up starting a second business called Mountain Love Films, which really just caters to weddings here in the White Mountains Lakes region area and kind of that northern part of Vermont. So not so much having to travel south of the border, definitely not doing these types of films in the city, but that's where I'm able to market to different types of clients and aesthetics. Mountain people aren't necessarily the city people. So, and then New Hampshire elopements came about in 2006 because so many people had asked me, oh, can you just do this for an hour? Could you take pictures? Could you take video? And I am a trained photographer, and that's what my background was in. So I did start NH Elopements, nhelopements.com, back in 2006. And it's always been a back pocket business. I was doing a few here and there. I think at the height of it, I maybe did 21 year in addition to all the other weddings. So it hasn't ever been a standalone business. I thought, oh, it'll be there if I decide to have children and I need a midweek source of income, because elopements usually up here happen midweek. And I'm grateful that I have it now because there has been an increase in inquiries for elopements, and a lot of my wedding couples that were booked for the big wedding films are now saying, oh, we have to postpone till next year, but we still want to have our ceremony. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, here I can step in. We have hourly pricing for that. So it's 3 different businesses, 3 different pricing structures, and kind of 3 different locations. One service is all of New England, one service is more just regional, and then with New Hampshire elopements, I've really kind of stuck with North Conway and Jackson just because it's close to home. So that's what I do in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And I should also say, I also run an educational workshop for wedding professionals. And typically it's a 1-day in-person event, but this year we had to pivot at the last minute and we took it online and made it a virtual event over the course of a week, May 4th through the 8th. And so that was quite the experience.
Yeah.
Taking everything to an online format, bringing in a bunch of other speakers and learning how to run an online event. So if anyone needs help running an online event, don't hesitate to reach out. We definitely tried some pretty cool platforms and ways to keep the community feeling together, like what you're doing with these Facebook Lives. So there's a lot of great tools and resources out there for any organization in our neck of the woods who was scheduled to have an event, not necessarily a wedding, but maybe like a corporate event or a meeting, and you still need to do it and you don't know how. I've tested a lot of the platforms, so if anyone needs help, they can always reach out and I can tell them what we used and how it worked and what didn't work.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And that's this perfect segue into COVID-19. You know, so we wanted to ask you a question on how you shifted things once this happened. So tell us a little bit, you know, you did the virtual event. How did it go? How did that affect your attendance and other things that have had to change for you?
That is a great question. And so typically in the past, we've sold out of the event every year within a month of ticket sales. And when COVID really started to flare up was just within a month. And so we didn't hit our ticket sales goal. But once everything sort of came about, we said, okay, well, the name of the workshop's Relevant Workshop. What is most relevant? At first we said, we'll just postpone until the fall. But as you know, and everyone else knows, things were changing daily, very fluid situation. So it was about, I think it was about mid-March. I said, we both, my partner Brie and I said, we need to take this to an online format. And what was fascinating about this format is that for introverts, they loved it. They flourished in this environment. And it sounds so silly, but for people who wouldn't normally walk into a networking event or a meeting and then creep over and introduce themselves to a group already established talking, we used this online platform called Remo, and it visualized, it literally looked like a ballroom, like the layout on screen had different tables. So you're allowed 6 people per table. And so when you entered this ballroom, you literally clicked on table and bam, you were in the table. So there wasn't that awkward, oh, well, I overheard you saying, because in today's modern world, you just pop on a Zoom call. It's like, oh, I'm here.
Yeah.
So introverts loved it. And that was great feedback because that's always something at the in-person event, we try to embrace the networking component so that people can really interact with each other. The other thing was access to speakers and access to the educators, or in someone's instance, if they have to do professional development and they need to bring that to a virtual platform. Because people aren't traveling, at least for our speakers, they weren't traveling. They didn't really have to do much more than log on. They were a lot more willing to donate time for the Facebook office hours or to be accessible to the attendees, which was a huge value add for everybody, because access to some of these speakers would never exist outside of the actual day of event. So that was really cool. And I think at least for me, I got a lot more out of the virtual experience because we had more interaction with the speakers. They did their online session and then they did the office hours and then they were active in the Facebook group for chatting, and it just humanized everyone on a different level. It didn't have certain speakers on a crazy pedestal that seemed untouchable, which sometimes can happen the day of an event. You're starstruck by a speaker and you're like, I could never talk to them.
Yeah.
But in this case, they were much more approachable. You were encouraged to engage with them. In the platform we were using, there was a question and answer box, the chat box, there was polls that the speakers could poll the attendees to keep it engaging. So a lot of pluses that came out of it, I
Yeah.
think.
That's awesome. It sounds like
Obviously, because of COVID and people who have children having to homeschool, that was the
Mhm.
unfortunate downside, is a lot of people couldn't tune in real time. So we did try and space it over the week. And the other good thing that we were never able to do in the past was offer replays of the sessions. So I've already gone through a few of the sessions 2-3 times over, because I'm like, what exactly did they say that I wanted to learn?
Yeah.
So that was a plus that we didn't expect too, is just having the education and information available for a much longer time, so people can learn on their own time.
Yep.
Which, yeah,
That's
there's
awesome.
there's benefits to that too. Like you said, I mean, it's always nice to have in-person things, but you definitely find out that maybe it's something that you will be able to run a virtual version of it, sometimes even once this COVID thing ends, for people.
Right.
You were definitely the one to ask.
Yeah.
Well, and since, I mean, this is dating myself, but I had a brief career in real estate. This was before the market crashed in 2008. That was my exit cue, because I had already started my wedding businesses and they were thriving, but I thought, that can't possibly be a real job. I have to get a real job. So I became a realtor. And so in thinking about how all this virtual stuff could work in your case, I know there's so much continuing education you have to do every year. You have to get so many credits. And if you want to become a broker, you got to do your more, 60 hours or whatever. So there's a lot, I think, moving forward, that COVID has shed a light on how things can actually benefit a lot of businesses too.
For sure.
In terms of the education and being able to do continuing ed and bring people together. So yeah.
Absolutely. And now with COVID too, how has it affected the wedding industry for you, and what are you seeing happen now for the
Sure.
weddings?
Yeah, it's as everybody knows, all of this has been such an interesting, fluid situation. But at first I was like, oh wow, knock on wood, nobody's canceled, nobody's postponed. And then I was like, what was in the water today? I had 3 of my clients crawl out of the woodwork and they're like, we're postponing till next year. We're able to secure the same weekend. Are you still available? And I'm like, okay, great. Thankfully with those, everything's fine. They shifted to the same weekend next year and we're good to go. I think a lot of people for the September, October weddings, August, September, October, were holding out for this past month to kick in and see, okay, what's really going to happen? How is this going to pan out? And that's sort of the case across all my vendor group friends. So not just with video, but with photo and catering, like everybody's sort of reporting in the same thing, that there's always the holdouts. There was, of course, a huge wave when all of this struck, where people were definitely like postponing right away. Now, what I know this sounds a little crazy, but unless couples are okay with total unknowns and potentially slashing guest lists, because the reality of the situation is right now, I think if someone were to get married today or elope today, I think it's 10 people, including a vendor. So in this case, it would be, if I was a photographer filming the elopement, maybe they'd have 9 people, still social distancing, and that's it as of today. The governor, or the reopening task force, is voting today on how they want to push forward, like rules and regulations that the governor then has to approve. And so we should be getting more clarification moving forward. But what I'm urging couples to really consider, whether it's couples that are listening in on this Facebook Live, or a parent or a loved one of anyone getting married, if anyone is still holding out for this year, that it's great and it's optimistic, and I'm an optimistic person. So there's 2 things you could do. One, you could have a small intimate party following all the rules and regulations, maybe a more considered micro wedding. What are the other terms people are using? Mini moni. Oh, ceremony. That was new to me. I'm like, micro wedding, elopement. And then of course have the big party next year, like the big reception. Show your photos and videos and have a great party next year. Or just outright rip the Band-Aid off and move on, like postpone until next year, because the longer people wait, they're not going to get that same weekend next year. Because what I am seeing is a huge influx in 2021 inquiries that are not COVID related. And I never book this early for certain dates for 2021 where I'm like, wow, this is interesting. Like I have more, more people have booked organically for next year by this time than I had in December of, it's just, I'm seeing it. And a lot of people are seeing the 2021 couples who didn't plan to marry in 2020 are realizing if we don't start booking, we aren't going to get married on a weekend because all of the reschedules will be on the weekends next year. So it's an interesting cycle. And I've been telling people, if you have reservations at all, it might be best to just rip the Band-Aid right off and say, you know what, if I want to maintain my vendor team and the same season, just do it now, because some couples are finding, oh, I was scheduled for a fall wedding. There's no more fall dates. Now I'm a spring wedding, but I had my dress and all my bridesmaids had their dresses and everyone had their suits, flowers and stuff. Obviously you can change that because those aren't going to be picked until, but your design aesthetic. So it depends on if you want to plan a second full wedding or if you want to just kind of roll with what you had and postpone it one more year. I know that perspective is maybe not what all people want to hear, but that's just the reality of, if you want a prime date next year, I would say get on it now, because a lot of those dates are just getting taken. So and a lot of people are saying, well, look at your vendor lineup. Who are your, obviously you chose them all for a reason. So they're probably all your must-haves, but if you can't have them all because only 3 out of the 4 can transfer to one date, like you've just got to weigh your options, and waiting another month might not yield the best results for being able to get those dates next year. But the good news is, for anyone out there who really didn't want the big wedding, this is like your permission slip to not have the big wedding and to say, you know what? We are just going to elope. We are going to have a micro wedding, and we'll have a backyard barbecue or a picnic by the lake or a dance party in a barn or whatever next year, casual, potluck, whatever, or catered, whatever. But for those couples who truly just, they're, weddings, as you both know, you both have been married, they can spiral, like one thing can lead to another. So for any couple who really just needs that permission slip to be like, okay, this is our way to not have the 200-person wedding. We can now have a 25-person wedding, micro wedding or whatever. I'm just saying, I'm giving you your permission slip. It's okay to elope and then have the party later. Now, Brie, you have another sister and she was recently engaged. Is her wedding scheduled for this year?
No. So she's debating when she's going to do this, but they can't go visit venues.
Oh,
so
right.
They didn't really have an idea, but they actually are considering an elopement potentially or local. It's back and forth.
Right.
And not because of COVID either for the elopement. It's just in general what you get out of one or the other.
Right.
But yeah, she's called, and people are definitely moving things into 2021. And then on top of that being the new kind of the organic for 2020 anyways, it's getting passed.
Because she was thinking 2021 anyway, regardless of COVID or not. But yeah, it gets hard. I mean,
it's just tough. You can't go see the venues. Yeah. So do you make it just based on photos and video they can send you virtually and that's it? Or?
Right. That's a tough position to be in. I know. It's all so, my heart goes out to any couple. This year, COVID couple, 2021, and then wedding planners, they are bearing the brunt of this. I mean, I just get it sort of like a step removed. Once the couple has made their decision, or if they're kind of looking for, would you be available if we did postpone? But my heart does go out to couples, because for some, you've planned this for maybe already for a year and a half, and now to wait enough more time is kind of a bummer. And well, it is a bummer for you. Right. And other people, they want to get on with life, and so maybe we'll have a lot of really cute flower kids in the future, instead of just the couple. They'll actually have their children in the wedding too.
Yeah, I know.
I was
gonna say that's true too. Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, I was supposed to be in a wedding this summer. It's in August. It's still on right now, but I mean, everything else is every month that goes by. It's just the bridal shower's canceled, the bachelorette party's canceled. you take it as it comes, and they're holding out, but again, it's a big commitment because everyone's made plans. So it's hard to want to cancel.
Right.
But I totally see your perspective too, because
That's the only reason I say rip the Band-Aid off.
Mhm.
But, on the flip side, it is such a case-by-case situation, because for people who say, well, it was going to be a tented wedding on a farm, or it was going to be in our backyard, and it's really just family and friends, and everyone's situation and comfort level is totally different. So I think there still will be people who just do hold out, and maybe they're allowed to move forward. I'm hoping that with the new rules that they'll at least say, a certain number of guests by X date for sure. That I think is what most people are holding out to
Yeah.
know.
No.
Right. Because that, weddings in New England in the summer, a lot of the venues have already pivoted to say, okay, well, we have this amount of outdoor space, and with the new rules and regulations, this is what we could do if they allow 100 people.
Mhm.
And, because there are so many of those blank slate barn venues and farms. I think the tricky part is anyone who is going to be getting married in an indoor space.
Yeah.
I know certain venues around the lake, they do have the ballroom, and if they don't allow you in the ballroom, then can you do everything outside and maintain the space? That's sort of the question, is space guidelines with the 6 feet, and then the guest count. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
time will tell. Everything's day to day.
I know. I think that's the hardest part, especially I'm a little type A of a person wanting to schedule and plan certain things. It's
Right.
hard because you just don't know
Yeah.
what tomorrow looks like, let alone next week or 3 months from now. So
Right.
I think that a lot of brides would appreciate, your flexibility, that whatever you can do, and you
Oh,
seem to
yeah.
been super accommodating.
And most wedding vendors that at least in my sphere, are very, accommodating. We all feel for the couples, and we're trying to do the best we can, whether that's helping them navigate a reschedule, providing them with tips and ideas.
Right.
For me, if people are moving forward, which I do still have some that haven't decided. So if they move forward, they've sort of preemptively told me, well, if we do move forward, we know we can have the venue and a smaller group of people, I'm still happy to do that. And then if, so if it's a catering company or hair and makeup or whoever, and you're doing a smaller portion of that event this year and then being able to do some of it next year, it is sort of a win-win for everybody, because maybe you can charge part of what you were going to charge this year and then take the remaining balance next year, so that for me as a filmmaker, I'm still making a little bit of income. That's why I'm excited that I do have the elopement business in my back pocket to hopefully get a few of those.
For sure.
But,
yeah.
yeah.
And like I was saying, at least, there's always a silver lining. I always try to see a little bit of a silver lining. So it's going to be kind of strange for you to have so much extra time this summer locally, I feel like.
I know. I'm like,
summer's here.
Is Stevens Landscaping hiring? Because I'm like, well, maybe this is the year I don't sit behind my computer all summer and do something outdoors.
I know. It's a transition for you too. Like you said, so for sure.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. I think if anyone
that's a ton of information and it's really valuable for us with the wedding industry, especially too, people can reach out to you, said, to help with virtual events. So you've kind of mastered that too. And I really appreciate everyone's time tuning in. And if you are rewatching it or you want to check out, I've tagged all 3 businesses that you own in the caption here. So people can definitely support locally and support you and check out, what you create as well on those sites. So I really encourage everyone to go and check out what you do, and you could see our weddings as well.
I was gonna say, rewatch ours, yes. I know.
You have to go back quite a few years.
I know, you gotta go back, but it's okay.
That's too funny. There's one other quote that I came upon in an article recently that I just want to leave people with. And it's interesting because as a sort of a documentary and storyteller, I'm always, same with you, Stephanie, and both you, Brie, silver linings. So say your wedding is scheduled for now and you really can't do it the way you wanted. So in 50 years, when it's 2070 and your family's saying, let's throw grandma and grandpa the 50th wedding anniversary of their dreams because they had to get married during the coronavirus pandemic. What a story that would be.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
Exactly. There's going to be t-shirts made. There's going to be
Yeah.
all of those things. I survive, you know, all of those things. So I know it's all relative, as you know, the time is right now, and like everything else, we'll get through it.
Yeah. I really appreciate you having me on. I could like look at your smiling faces all day because, and the other one quick final thing is that I'll never forget in Brie's wedding film, I think it was your mom and dad, I was interviewing them or something, and they just said, whatever she does is, you know, whatever they do together is just going to be amazing. I can't wait to see where life takes them. And I've always thought of that every time I'm driving through the Center Harbor, Moltenboro area, and I'm like, yeah, look at what they've done. Like what you have done is just amazing. I'm so proud of you both.
I appreciate it.
All
Thank
of you.
very
Yeah.
much.
I know time goes by so fast. That's for sure.
Yes.
It feels like it was just last year, and it's been 5 for me.
Yeah.
So it's like it's crazy. So yeah, we appreciate you taking the time to hop on with us also, and we appreciate seeing your smiley face too. So it's been a while. So hopefully at some point you'll be able to stop in and visit us here once we have open door policy again, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your gardening
Yes.
so far this spring.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Okay. Likewise. Bye.